Pack your bags tonight, Lila. After the will reading, you're out of here. Colin's voice sliced through the air like ice as he stood in the doorway of what had once been their bedroom. He didn't even look at her, his eyes fixed on his phone, no doubt texting Kelsey, the woman he had been sleeping with for some time. Lila sat on the edge of the bed, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She didn't cry. The tears had dried up long ago, back when she first discovered the affair. Now she simply felt numb, watching the man she had married treat her like something he couldn't wait to discard. "Did you hear me?" Colin snapped, finally glancing up. "After the will reading, you're gone. The lawyer reads Dad's will. I get everything and you get nothing. I've already talked to my attorney. You signed that prenup, remember? You leave this marriage with exactly what you brought into it." Nothing. Lila remembered the prenup. She had been so deeply in love back then, so certain their marriage would last forever. She had signed it without reading it carefully. Colin's father, Victor, had even pulled her aside and urged her to get her own lawyer to review it, but she had been too trusting, too naive. "I've already found you an apartment," Colin continued, his tone dripping with false generosity. "A studio in the rough part of town. Rent is cheap. You'll need to find a job pretty quickly, though. I'm not paying you a dime afterward." He stepped closer, and Lila caught the sharp scent of his expensive cologne, the same one she had once loved. Now, it turned her stomach. "Kelsey and I are getting married next month," he said with a cruel smile. "We're going to live here, in this house, the house my father left me. So yeah, pack your stuff tonight, and don't even think about taking anything valuable. I've got cameras everywhere now." Lila finally spoke. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Your father loved you, Colin. Even when you never visited him, even when you were too busy to see him during his final months." Colin laughed, an ugly, hollow sound. "My father was senile. He didn't know what day it was half the time, but he was smart enough to leave everything to his only son. That's me, in case you forgot." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Kelsey's coming over tonight. We're celebrating early. You can sleep in the guest room. Actually, you know what? Sleep in the basement. I don't want you anywhere near us." The door slammed behind him. Lila sat in the heavy silence, but she wasn't thinking about packing. She was thinking about Victor. Some time ago, Victor had suffered a stroke. It left him weak on one side and struggling with his speech. Colin had wanted to put him in a nursing home immediately. "He's done," Colin had said. "No point wasting money on someone who's basically already gone." But Lila had insisted Victor come live with them. She had fought Colin on it, which was rare for her back then. Something about the way Colin spoke about his own father had sickened her. Victor had built a successful manufacturing company from nothing. He had raised Colin alone after Colin's mother left. And now Colin wanted to dump him in some facility and forget about him. So Victor moved into the downstairs bedroom, and Lila became his primary caregiver. At first it was hard. Victor was frustrated by his condition. He couldn't say the words he wanted to say. His right hand shook badly. But Lila was patient. She helped him with physical therapy exercises. She learned to understand his halting speech. She read to him every evening, and slowly Victor improved. His speech grew clearer. His hand steadied. The doctors were amazed. Colin never noticed. He was too busy at the company, too busy with his new assistant, Kelsey. During the time Victor lived with them, Lila and Victor shared countless conversations. He told her about building his business, about the mistakes he had made, about his regrets with Colin's mother, about his disappointment in the man Colin had become. "He used to be a good boy," Victor said one evening, his words slow but clear. "Somewhere along the way he got greedy, got mean." Lila had nodded, fighting back tears. She was already suspecting Colin's affair by then. "I see everything, you know," Victor had continued, his blue eyes sharp despite his failing body. "I see how he treats you. I see who he really is." "What can I do?" Lila had whispered. "I have nothing. No money saved. No real career anymore. I gave it all up to support him." Victor had reached out with his good hand and squeezed hers. "Trust me, sweetheart. Justice is coming. I promise you that." At the time, Lila hadn't understood what he meant. Victor had died peacefully in his sleep some time later. Lila had found him in the morning and wept as if she had lost her own father. Colin had barely cried at the funeral. He was too busy on his phone, already planning for the inheritance. Now, sitting alone in the bedroom, Lila remembered Victor's promise. Justice is coming. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see Colin's Mercedes in the driveway. Kelsey's car pulled up behind it. The woman got out wearing a tight red dress and heels. She was laughing at something on her phone. Lila watched Colin come outside to greet her. He wrapped his arms around Kelsey and kissed her deeply, right there in the driveway where any neighbor could see, where Lila could see. Kelsey looked up at the bedroom window and smiled. It was a smile of victory, a smile that said, "I won." But Lila didn't look away. She met Kelsey's eyes and thought about Victor's words again. Justice is coming. At the will reading, the lawyer would reveal everything. Colin was certain he knew what it said. He had been counting on it ever since Victor got sick. But Lila remembered something Colin didn't know. Shortly before Victor died, a lawyer had come to the house. Not Colin's lawyer, a different one. Victor had been very clear that he wanted privacy for the meeting. Lila had helped Victor get dressed that day, had walked him to the study, and then had left them alone. When the lawyer left some time later, Victor had seemed tired, but satisfied. "It's done," he had said to Lila. "Everything's done now." Lila had assumed he meant his will was finalized. She hadn't thought much about it, but now, standing at the window watching her husband with his mistress, she wondered. Victor had been a smart man, a careful man. He had built a multi-million-dollar company through intelligence and planning. Had he really left everything to the son who had abandoned him? To the son who had stolen from the company? To the son who treated his wife like trash? Or had Victor seen something Colin couldn't see? Lila took a deep breath and turned away from the window. She opened her closet and pulled out a suitcase. She packed tonight like Colin ordered, but not because she was leaving defeated. She packed because one way or another, her life was about to change. At the will reading, she would know the truth. At the will reading, someone's world was going to end. And Lila was beginning to hope for the first time in months that it wouldn't be hers. Lila folded clothes mechanically, her mind drifting through the years of her marriage. She met Colin at a business networking event. She had been working as a junior analyst at a consulting firm. He was confident and charming, wearing an expensive suit and talking about the family business he would inherit someday. He had approached her with a drink and a smile, and she had been flattered by his attention. Their courtship had been intense. Colin pursued her aggressively, taking her to fancy restaurants, buying her gifts, making her feel special. He told her he had never met anyone like her, that she was different from other women, that she understood him. Looking back now, Lila could see the red flags she had ignored. The way Colin talked down to servers at restaurants, the way he dismissed her opinions if they differed from his, the way he expected her to always be available but would cancel plans with her if something better came up. But she had been young and in love. She had convinced herself those things didn't matter. They got married after a year of dating. Victor had paid for a beautiful wedding. Colin's father had walked her down the aisle since her own parents had passed away years before. She remembered Victor whispering to her at the altar, "You can still run, you know. I won't be offended." He had been joking, sort of. But there had been something serious in his eyes. She had laughed it off and married Colin anyway. The first few years hadn't been terrible. Colin worked long hours at the company, but so did most ambitious men, she told herself. She quit her job when he asked her to, agreeing that it made more sense for her to manage their home. They would have children soon anyway, Colin said, but children never came. After some time of trying, they saw a fertility specialist. The problem was Colin's low sperm count. The doctor recommended treatments, but Colin refused. He became angry whenever she brought it up. Eventually, he stopped sleeping with her altogether. "It's too stressful," he had said. "All this pressure to perform. Just drop it, Lila." So she dropped it. She pushed down her dreams of being a mother and tried to be content with her role as Colin's wife. Then Victor got sick and everything changed. When Victor moved in, Colin's true colors emerged fully. He treated his father with contempt, speaking to him like he was an idiot child. When Victor struggled to eat or dress himself in those early days after the stroke, Colin would mutter about how pathetic it was. Lila had been horrified. This was Colin's father, the man who had raised him alone after his mother left, the man who had built the company Colin now worked for, the man who had given Colin every opportunity in life. And Colin treated him like garbage. Caring for Victor had given Lila purpose again. She had thrown herself into learning about stroke recovery, physical therapy, speech therapy. She had celebrated every small victory with Victor, every word he relearned, every step he took with less assistance. During those quiet evenings reading to Victor, or helping him with exercises, or just talking about life, Lila had felt more connected to him than she had felt to Colin in years. Victor was kind. He was grateful. He saw her as a person, not just an accessory, and he had known about the affair before she did. Lila paused in her packing, remembering the day some time ago when everything came crashing down. She had stopped by Colin's office to drop off lunch. His assistant Kelsey had been away from her desk, so Lila had gone straight to Colin's office door. It was slightly open. She had heard them before she saw them. Kelsey's laugh, high and flirtatious. Colin's voice, warm in a way he never sounded with Lila anymore. "When are you going to leave her?" Kelsey was saying. "Soon," Colin replied. "Once my dad dies and I inherit everything, the prenup protects me completely. She'll get nothing and then I'm free. And we can finally be together." "We can be together now, baby." "Who cares what she thinks? She's so pathetic she probably doesn't even notice I'm never home." Kelsey had giggled. "She does seem pretty clueless. I can't believe she bought that story about you working late all those nights." Lila had stood frozen outside the door. Then Kelsey had said something that made her stomach turn. "I still can't believe we did it on your desk last week." What if she'd walked in? Colin had laughed. That might have been fun, the look on her face. Lila had turned and walked away silently. She had made it to her car before she started shaking. She had driven home in a daze and sat in the driveway for some time trying to process what she had heard. That evening, when Colin came home, she had watched him carefully. He kissed her on the cheek absently, like always. He had asked what was for dinner. He had complained about a problem at work, all normal. Then he had announced he was going out with clients and wouldn't be home until late. She had nodded and said nothing. After he left, she had gone to Victor's room. The old man had been reading with his good hand, his reading glasses perched on his nose. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" he had asked immediately. Victor had always been able to read her, and she told him everything. Victor had listened without interrupting, his face growing darker with each word. When she finished, he had been quiet for a long moment. "I knew he was cruel," Victor finally said, "but I didn't know he was this cruel. And I didn't know about the girl." "What do I do?" Lila had asked, tears finally falling. "I have nothing, Victor. I gave up my career. I have no savings of my own. The prenup means I get nothing if we divorce. I'm trapped." Victor had taken her hand, his shaking one. "No," he had said firmly. "You're not trapped. Colin thinks he's won. He thinks once I'm gone, he'll have everything and you'll have nothing. But he's wrong." "How can he be wrong?" "The will. The will isn't what Colin thinks it is," Victor interrupted. "I've been watching him for some time now. I've seen how he treats you. I've seen how he treats me. And I've been watching what he does at the company." Lila had looked at him in confusion. "What do you mean?" "Colin thinks I'm senile. He thinks I don't know what's going on. But I have friends. I have people who keep me informed. And Colin has been stealing from the company, Lila. He's been embezzling money for some time. He thinks I don't know, but I know everything." Lila's eyes had widened. "He's stealing from his own inheritance?" "He's greedy and stupid," Victor said bluntly. "He can't wait for me to die naturally. He wants money now to spend on his girlfriend, so he's been taking it. I have proof. Bank records, forged signatures, everything. Are you going to turn him in?" Victor had smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "Not yet, but I've made arrangements. The will reading is going to be very interesting when the time comes. You just have to trust me and stay strong." "Can you do that?" Lila had nodded, even though she didn't fully understand. Now, months later, packing her clothes while Colin and Kelsey laughed downstairs, she finally understood. Victor had been planning something Colin didn't expect. She just hoped it was enough to save her. She heard footsteps on the stairs and tensed. But they went past the bedroom toward Colin's room. She heard the door close, then Kelsey's laugh again, louder now. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Lila closed her suitcase and set it by the door. Then she pulled out her phone and looked at the photos stored there. Pictures of better times. Except now, she could see the truth in every image. Colin's fake smile, his hand barely touching her in group photos, the distance in his eyes. How had she been so blind? She deleted the photos one by one. That version of her life was over. That naive woman who had believed in love and trust was gone. The will reading would reveal what came next. She thought about Victor's funeral just some time ago. Colin had given a short, emotionless eulogy about his father's business success. But when Lila had spoken, she talked about Victor's kindness, his humor, his strength. She talked about the man he really was. Afterward, Victor's lawyer, a man named Mitchell Caldwell, had approached her quietly. "Mrs. Bennett, I'll see you at the will reading," he had said. "Don't be late." There had been something meaningful in his tone, something that made her pay attention. "I'll be there," she promised. He had nodded and handed her his card. "If you need anything before then, call me, day or night." Colin hadn't noticed the exchange. He had been too busy accepting condolences from business associates who probably didn't even like him. Lila had kept the lawyer's card. It was in her wallet now, a small piece of hope. She lay down on the bed fully clothed. The will reading would come soon enough. For better or worse, her life would change then. She just had to survive one more night. Downstairs, she heard Kelsey's laugh again, followed by Colin's. They were probably drinking Victor's expensive wine, celebrating their victory before it even happened. Let them celebrate, Lila thought. Let them think they've won. Because if Victor had taught her anything during the time she cared for him, it was that the smartest people were often the quietest. They watched. They planned. They waited for the right moment. And Victor had been a very smart man. Lila woke at dawn, her neck stiff from sleeping in her clothes. She could hear silence in the house, which meant Colin and Kelsey were still asleep. She got up quietly and went downstairs to the kitchen. The house felt different now. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place she was visiting, a place she had no claim to. By this afternoon, that feeling would be reality. She made coffee and stood by the kitchen window watching the sun rise. The yard looked beautiful in the early light. She had spent the time maintaining these gardens while caring for Victor. She had planted roses by the fence because they were his late wife's favorite. She created a small vegetable patch that Victor could see from his bedroom window. All of it would belong to Colin and Kelsey soon, unless Victor had done something. Lila's mind drifted back to the man she had grown so close to over the time he lived with them. The real Victor, not the senile invalid Colin believed him to be. The first real conversation she had had with Victor was some time after his stroke, after he had come to live with them. He had been frustrated that day, struggling to make his mouth form words. The speech therapist had just left and Victor was exhausted. Lila had brought him water and helped him into his recliner by the window. "Take your time," she had said gently. "There's no rush." Victor had looked at her with those sharp blue eyes, and slowly, carefully, he had managed to say, "Thank you." 2 words, but they had meant everything. From that day forward, they had built a routine. Every morning, Lila would help Victor with his exercises. Every afternoon, they would take short walks around the garden, with Victor using his cane and Lila supporting his weak side. Every evening, she would read to him. But it was the conversations in between that mattered most. As Victor's speech improved, he had started telling her stories about his life, about immigrating to America as a young man with nothing but a dream, about working 3 jobs while going to night school, about starting his manufacturing company in a tiny rented warehouse. "I made bearings," Victor told her once, his words slow but clear. "Small metal bearings for machinery. Nothing glamorous. But I made them better than anyone else, and I kept my word. If I said a delivery would arrive on a certain day, it arrived. If I said a part would last a certain number of cycles, it lasted longer. That's how you built the company, Lila had said. That's how you build anything worth having, Victor replied. Keep your word. Do quality work. Treat people fairly. Simple rules, but most people can't follow them. Colin certainly couldn't. Even before Victor's stroke, Colin had been cutting corners at the company, using cheaper materials, missing deadlines, blaming others for his mistakes. Victor had known. He had known everything. Why did you make him vice president? Lila had asked once, some time after Victor moved in. By then, they were comfortable enough with each other for honest questions. Victor had sighed. Because he's my son. I kept hoping he'd grow up, that he'd learn responsibility. But some people never learn. They just get better at hiding who they really are. You should have fired him. I should have. But I'm a foolish old man who loves his son, even when that son doesn't deserve it. Lila had squeezed his hand. You're not foolish. We'll see, Victor had said mysteriously. Those conversations had taught Lila more about business than her college degree ever had. Victor had a wisdom that came from decades of real experience. He would explain market trends, negotiation tactics, leadership principles. He would tell her about deals he had made and deals he had walked away from. The secret to negotiation, he had said one evening, is being willing to lose. If you're desperate, people smell it. But if you can walk away, you have all the power. Lila had absorbed everything. She had started reading business books from Victor's library. She had asked questions about the company, about the industry, about management. Victor had been delighted to have someone who actually cared. Colin never asked his father anything. He avoided Victor's room as much as possible. But Victor had eyes and ears everywhere. He confided in Lila some time before he died that he had hired a private investigator. I needed to know the truth, Victor had explained, about what Colin was doing at the company, about his personal life. I had suspicions, but I needed proof. What did you find? Lila had asked. Victor's face had darkened. Everything. The affair with his assistant, the embezzlement, the way he talks about you behind your back, the way he's planning to divorce you the moment I'm gone. Lila had felt tears sting her eyes, even though she had already known about the affair by then. Hearing it confirmed by someone else had made it more real. I'm sorry, sweetheart, Victor had said. You deserve so much better than my son. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure you're taken care of, Victor had promised. Colin thinks he's smart. He thinks he's fooled everyone, but he's not smart. He's just cruel. And cruelty isn't the same as intelligence. Sometime later, Victor had called his lawyer, Mitchell Caldwell. Not the family lawyer Colin knew about, but Victor's personal attorney. The man had come to the house on an afternoon when Colin was at work. Lila had helped Victor get ready for the meeting, dressing him in his good shirt and helping him to the study. Before she left them alone, Victor had reached for her hand. Whatever happens to me, you're going to be okay, he had said. I promise you that. I'm more worried about you, Lila had replied. Don't be. I've lived a good long life. I've built something that matters, and now I'm going to make sure it goes to someone who will appreciate it. The meeting had lasted some time. When Mitchell Caldwell left, he had nodded respectfully to Lila but said nothing. Attorney-client privilege. After that day, Victor had seemed lighter, happier, like a weight had been lifted. He had spent his remaining time sharing more stories with Lila, teaching her everything he could about the business, about life, about being strong. One of their last conversations, just some time before he died, had stayed with Lila constantly. They had been in the garden, sitting on the bench under the oak tree. The afternoon was warm, and Victor had been tired, but content. You're a good person, Lila, he had said suddenly. You know that, right? I don't know. I feel like I've made so many mistakes. Marrying my son wasn't a mistake. It was a miscalculation. There's a difference. You loved him based on who you thought he was. That's not your fault. I should have seen what he really was. Love makes us blind sometimes, but you're not blind anymore, are you? Lila had shaken her head. Good. Because what's coming next is going to require you to be very strong, stronger than you think you can be. What's coming next? Victor had smiled. Justice, the kind that can't be undone or contested, the kind that's built on truth and law. Colin thinks he's won, but he's about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating people. I don't understand. You will. So just remember what I've taught you about business, about standing firm, about knowing your worth. You're worth more than Colin ever understood, and I'm going to prove it. Victor had died peacefully in his sleep some time later. Lila had found him in the morning, his face calm, his body finally at rest. She had wept then, and she wept now, standing in the kitchen with her coffee. She had loved Victor like a father. He had been more family to her than Colin had been in their marriage. The clock on the wall showed it was time to get ready, sometime until the will reading. Lila went upstairs to shower and change. She chose a simple black dress, professional but not flashy. She put on minimal makeup and tied her hair back. She wanted to look composed no matter what happened. When she came back downstairs, Colin was in the kitchen making coffee. He looked at her coldly. "You look nice. Trying to make a good impression on the lawyer? Won't matter. The will is ironclad." Lila said nothing. She just picked up her purse. "Where's your suitcase?" Colin asked. "I told you to pack. It's by the door, just like you asked." Colin nodded, satisfied. "Good. Mitchell's office is downtown. We should leave soon. Where's Kelsey?" "Still asleep in your room, I assume." Colin had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. Only slightly. "She's coming to the will reading. That's inappropriate." "I don't care what you think is appropriate. She's part of my life now. Get used to it." Lila turned away before he could see the look on her face. Not anger, not sadness. Something else. Something harder. She thought about Victor's words, about being strong, about knowing her worth. Soon, everything would change. She was ready. Actually, Lila realized she needed to correct her memory. The previous night hadn't been just any night. It had been calculated cruelty. After Colin told her to pack, after he had informed her Kelsey was coming over, Lila had taken her small bag to the basement as instructed. The basement wasn't finished. It was cold concrete and exposed pipes with an old couch and a space heater that barely worked. Colin had never asked her to sleep there before. This was a new level of disrespect. She had sat on that couch for some time, staring at nothing, before she heard them arrive upstairs. Not just Kelsey's voice, multiple voices. Colin had invited people over. A party. Lila had climbed the basement stairs and cracked open the door. Through the gap she could see into the living room. Colin, Kelsey, and several other people from Colin's office. They had wine, expensive cheese, and they were laughing. "This is my house," Colin was saying, gesturing grandly. "Well, it will be officially after the will reading. Dad's will gets read then." "I can't believe the old man finally kicked it," one of Colin's friends said, a guy named Tanner, who Lila had never liked. "Took him long enough." Everyone had laughed about Victor's death. Lila's stomach had turned. "So you're really kicking out the wife?" Tanner asked. "That's cold, man." "Why should I keep her around?" Colin had responded. "She's useless. No job, no money, nothing to offer. Meanwhile, I've got Kelsey who actually understands me." Kelsey had smiled and kissed him. "Plus, I look way better in a dress." More laughter. "Where's the wife anyway?" someone asked. "Basement," Colin said casually. "I told her to sleep down there tonight. Didn't want her ruining our celebration." The group had erupted in laughter and shock. "You made your wife sleep in the basement?" Tanner's girlfriend had asked, sounding uncertain. "She's not my wife after the will reading," Colin said. "She's just a woman I'm evicting." Lila had closed the door silently and gone back to the couch. She had wrapped herself in an old blanket and tried to block out the sounds from upstairs. The music, the laughter, the celebration of her destruction. But she couldn't sleep, so she had spent the night thinking about everything Victor had told her. Every lesson, every promise. Sometime later, she had heard footsteps on the basement stairs. The door had opened, and Kelsey had appeared, clearly drunk. "Oh, you're still here," Kelsey had said, her words slurring slightly. "I thought maybe you'd left already." Lila had said nothing. "You know, I almost feel bad for you," Kelsey continued, leaning against the doorframe. "Colin says you used to be pretty. Hard to see it now. You look so worn out. You should go back upstairs." Lila had said quietly. "What? This is going to be my house soon. I can go wherever I want." Kelsey had walked further into the basement, looking around with distaste. God, this is depressing. Did Colin really make you sleep down here? That's harsh, even for him. Kelsey, please go. But Kelsey had sat down on the other end of the couch, studying Lila with drunken curiosity. Can I ask you something? Why did you stay? I mean, you had to know Colin didn't love you anymore. It's been obvious for years. Why didn't you just leave? Lila had looked at this woman who had helped destroy her marriage. This woman who had had an affair with a married man and felt no guilt about it. I stayed because I took my vows seriously, Lila had said. I stayed because I believed in commitment. I stayed because I was taking care of Colin's father, and someone needed to do it. I stayed because I'm not a person who runs when things get hard. Kelsey had laughed. And look where that got you. Sleeping in a basement while your husband parties upstairs with his new girlfriend. Maybe running wouldn't have been such a bad idea. Maybe you're right, Lila had said. But at least I can live with myself. Can you? Kelsey's face had hardened. I'm not the villain here. Colin and I are in love. You were just in the way. If you'd been a better wife, he wouldn't have looked elsewhere. If Colin wanted a better wife, he should have been a better husband. Whatever helps you sleep at night, Kelsey had said, standing up unsteadily. Or not sleep, I guess, since you're in a freezing basement. Anyway, see you at the will reading. Oh, wait, no, I won't. Colin said you're not invited to the post-reading celebration we're having. Just the will reading, then you're out. Kelsey had stumbled back up the stairs, laughing to herself. Lila had sat in the dark for a long time after that. She thought about Victor, about the life she had built that was crumbling around her, about the woman she used to be and the woman she was becoming. She thought about justice. Sometime later, she had finally dozed off, her dreams full of Victor's voice saying, "Trust me, sweetheart, justice is coming." Now, standing in the kitchen with Colin, those words echoed again. Some time until the will reading. Colin left the kitchen to wake up Kelsey. Lila stood alone, her coffee cold in her hands. She thought about her suitcase by the door, about the studio apartment Colin had found for her in the bad part of town, about starting over with nothing. But she also thought about Victor's lessons, about standing firm, about keeping your word, about the power of being willing to walk away. Victor had been willing to walk away from his son. That must have been the hardest decision of his life, but he had done it because he believed in something bigger than blood. He believed in character. Lila looked at her reflection in the kitchen window. She looked tired, worn out like Kelsey had said. But there was something else in her eyes now, something harder, determination. Whatever happened at that will reading, she would face it with dignity. She would not cry. She would not beg. She would not give Colin or Kelsey the satisfaction of seeing her broken. Victor had given her his strength over the time she cared for him. Now she needed to use it. The clock ticked toward departure time. Colin and Kelsey came downstairs, both dressed for the occasion. Colin in his best suit, Kelsey in a tight red dress that was completely inappropriate for a will reading. Ready? Colin asked Lila. Yes. Good. Let's get this over with. We have lunch reservations to celebrate. They walked out to Colin's car. Colin drove, Kelsey in the front passenger seat, Lila in the back like she was being chauffeured or arrested. The drive downtown took some time. Colin and Kelsey chatted about their lunch plans, their honeymoon plans, their plans to renovate the house. They talked about Lila like she wasn't there. Lila looked out the window and said nothing. They arrived at Mitchell Caldwell's office building. The law firm occupied an upper floor of a sleek glass building. They rode the elevator in silence. The receptionist showed them to a conference room. It was elegantly furnished with a long table and leather chairs. Mitchell Caldwell was already there, a thin man in his 60s with gray hair and intelligent eyes. "Good morning," he said professionally. "Please sit down. We'll begin promptly." Colin and Kelsey sat on one side of the table. Lila sat on the other side, separated from them by distance and so much more. Mitchell opened his briefcase and pulled out several folders. He glanced at Lila, and for just a second, something passed across his face, not quite a smile, but something. Lila's heart began to beat faster. "Let's begin," Mitchell Caldwell said, opening the first folder, and Lila's life changed forever. Mitchell Caldwell adjusted his glasses and looked at each of them in turn. Colin sat back in his chair, confident and relaxed. Kelsey had her hand on Colin's arm, possessive and smug. Lila sat straight, her hands folded in her lap. "The last will and testament of Victor Eugene Bennett," Mitchell began, his voice formal and measured, "executed according to all legal requirements of this state." Colin smiled. "Before I begin reading the specific bequests," Mitchell continued, "I need to inform you that this document contains several unusual elements. Mr. Bennett was very specific about how he wanted this reading conducted. I'm required to read the entire document without interruption. You'll have time for questions afterward." "Just get on with it," Colin said impatiently. "We all know what it says." Mitchell gave Colin a long look. "Do you?" Something in his tone made Colin shift slightly, but his confidence didn't waver. "Dad and I discussed this years ago. Everything goes to me. I'm his only child." "We'll see," Mitchell said, and began reading. "I, Victor Eugene Bennett, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. I hereby revoke all previous wills and codicils." Standard opening. Colin nodded along. "First, I want to address the nature of this document. Some people may question my mental competency given my stroke some time ago. To address this concern directly, I have included video recordings of my meetings with my attorney, Mitchell Caldwell, showing my clear understanding of these decisions. I have also included a letter from my physician, Dr. Everett Lang, attesting to my mental clarity." Colin frowned slightly. This was more defensive than necessary. Why would Dad need to prove his competence? Mitchell continued. "Second, I want to state clearly that I have been fully aware of everything happening in my company and in my household for some time. Despite what some may have believed, my stroke affected my mobility and speech, not my mind. I have watched. I have listened. I have documented." The room grew quieter. Colin's smile faded. "Third, before I distribute my assets, I must address several matters that have come to my attention." Mitchell pulled out another folder. "For some time, my son, Colin Bennett, has been embezzling money from Bennett Manufacturing. The total amount stolen is approximately a large sum." Colin shot to his feet. "That's a lie." "Sit down, Mr. Bennett," Mitchell said firmly. "You'll have time to speak later." "I'm not sitting here and listening to these insane accusations. My father was senile. This will is obviously—" "Your father wasn't senile," Mitchell interrupted. "And I have proof. Bank records showing wire transfers to an offshore account in your name, forged authorization documents with your signature, email communications with your accomplice at the company, security footage of you accessing files you weren't authorized to access. Should I continue?" Colin's face went white. He sat down slowly. Kelsey was staring at him. "Colin, what is he talking about?" "Shut up," Colin hissed. Mitchell continued reading. "I've reported these crimes to the proper authorities. Criminal charges are pending. This is not vengeance. This is justice. I built my company through honesty and hard work. Watching my son steal from it has been the greatest disappointment of my life." Lila felt her heart pounding. Victor had actually done it. He turned Colin in. "Fourth," Mitchell read, "I must address my son's personal conduct. For some time, Colin has been having an affair with his assistant, Kelsey Price." Kelsey gasped. Her hand flew off Colin's arm. "This affair has been conducted with astonishing carelessness, in my own house, with complete disregard for Colin's marriage vows or his wife's feelings. I have video evidence, witness statements, and documented proof of this affair." "How?" Colin demanded. "How could you possibly—" "Your father hired an investigator," Mitchell said simply, "a very thorough one." Colin slumped in his chair, the confidence draining from his face. "Now," Mitchell said, "we come to the distribution of assets. This is where things get interesting." He pulled out a new document. "The following is my son Colin's inheritance." Colin sat up slightly, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "To my son, Colin Bennett, I leave the sum of $1. Silence crashed into the room like a physical force. "What?" Colin whispered. $1, Mitchell repeated. "Your father was very clear. As his only biological child, he legally had to leave you something. So he left you $1. That's your inheritance." No, Colin said, his voice rising. No, that's not possible. Everything else, the company, the house, the money, goes to someone else, Mitchell finished. Colin's face went from white to red. Oh, he has no other children. His siblings are dead. Who gets my inheritance? Mitchell looked directly at Lila. Your wife. The world stopped spinning. Lila couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she had just heard. To Lila Marie Bennett, Mitchell read, his voice gentle now, I leave everything. My entire estate, the company, the properties, the investments, the bank accounts, everything that I own becomes hers without restriction or condition. No, Colin was shouting now. That's insane. You can't do this. It's already done, Mitchell said. The will is legal, properly executed, and ironclad. Your father made sure of it. Colin lunged across the table trying to grab the will. Mitchell smoothly moved it out of reach. Security, Mitchell said calmly into his phone. She manipulated him, Colin screamed. She took advantage of a sick old man. This will should be thrown out. Your father anticipated that accusation, Mitchell said. He pulled out a tablet and pressed play. Victor's face appeared on the screen. He was sitting in this very office, wearing the shirt Lila had helped him put on that day. His speech was slow, but absolutely clear. His eyes were sharp and focused. If you're watching this, Victor said on the video, it means I'm dead and Colin is contesting the will. So let me be very clear. I am of sound mind. I understand exactly what I'm doing, and I am giving everything to Lila because she deserves it. Colin stared at the screen, his mouth opening and closing. Colin is my son, Victor continued on the video, and I love him despite everything. But love doesn't mean blindness. Colin has proven himself to be dishonest, cruel, and greedy. He stole from my company. He betrayed his wife. He treated me with contempt. He has shown no character, no integrity, and no remorse. On screen, Victor paused to catch his breath, then continued. Lila, on the other hand, has shown me nothing but kindness. She cared for me when my own son couldn't be bothered. She listened to me. She respected me. She treated me like a human being, not a burden. She asked nothing in return. She expected nothing. And when I told her about Colin's betrayal, she didn't gloat or celebrate. She just looked sad. Sad for me that my son had turned out this way. Tears were streaming down Lila's face now. She couldn't stop them. So I'm giving everything to her, Victor said on the video, not to manipulate Colin, not to punish him, though he deserves punishment, but because Lila is the kind of person who will actually do something good with it. She'll run the company with integrity. She'll treat employees fairly. She'll build something that matters. And she'll do it all while Colin sits in prison for embezzlement. The video ended. The room was completely silent except for Lila's quiet crying. 2 security guards entered. Mr. Caldwell, please escort Mr. Colin Bennett and Miss Kelsey Price from the building, Mitchell said. They're no longer welcome here. You can't do this, Colin shouted as the guards took his arms. I'll fight this. I'll contest the will. Oh, you'll lose, Mitchell said calmly. The will is unbreakable. The evidence against you is overwhelming, and you're about to be arrested for embezzlement. I'd suggest you call a lawyer, a criminal lawyer. Colin tried to pull free from the guards, but they held him firmly. Kelsey was crying now, mascara running down her face. Colin, what's happening? Kelsey asked. You said you were getting millions. Shut up, Colin screamed at her. Just shut up. The guards pulled them both toward the door. Colin looked back at Lila one last time, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. You manipulated him, he shouted. You're a gold digger, a con artist. Lila looked at him steadily, tears still on her face, but her voice calm. I loved him like a father. That's something you never did. Colin lunged toward her, but the guards held him back and dragged him out. His screaming echoed down the hallway until the elevator doors closed. Then, silence. Lila sat alone in the conference room with Mitchell Caldwell. She was shaking uncontrollably. Are you all right, Mrs. Bennett? Mitchell asked gently. I don't understand, Lila whispered. Everything? He left me everything? Everything, Mitchell confirmed. He slid a folder across the table. The company is worth a substantial amount. The properties total another large sum. Various investments and accounts add even more. Total estate value, a very large fortune. It's all yours. Leela stared at the numbers. They didn't feel real. Victor made arrangements for the transition, Mitchell continued. I'm authorized to help you with everything. Board meetings, management transitions, legal matters, whatever you need. I don't know how to run a company, Lila said. Mitchell smiled. Victor thought you did. He told me about your conversations, about everything he taught you. He believed in you, Mrs. Bennett. He believed you could do this. Lila looked at the folder in front of her. Inside was everything Victor had built, everything he had worked for, everything he had trusted her with. There's one more thing, Mitchell said. He pulled out an envelope. Victor asked me to give you this. He wrote it sometime before he died. Lila took the envelope with shaking hands. Her name was written on the front in Victor's careful handwriting. Take your time, Mitchell said. I'll give you privacy. He left the room, closing the door behind him. Lila opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. Dear Lila, it began. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've just learned the truth. I imagine you're in shock. That's okay. Take all the time you need. But when you're ready, I need you to be strong. Leela's hands trembled as she read Victor's letter. Dear Lila, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've just learned the truth. I imagine you're in shock. That's okay. Take all the time you need. But when you're ready, I need you to be strong. Colin will try to fight this. He'll claim you manipulated me. He'll say I was senile. He'll drag this through court if he can. Don't let him intimidate you. Mitchell Caldwell is the best attorney in the state. The will is unbreakable. The evidence is overwhelming. You will win. You're probably wondering why I chose you. Let me explain. For the time I lived with you, I watched you care for me with patience and kindness I didn't deserve. You weren't related to me. You weren't paid to do it. You did it because you saw me as a human being worth caring about. That's rare, Lila. That's precious. During our conversations, I saw your intelligence, your common sense, your integrity. You asked thoughtful questions. You challenged my ideas respectfully. You understood business concepts faster than people with MBAs. You had wisdom beyond your education. Most importantly, you never once asked me for anything, never hinted that you expected an inheritance, never treated me differently when you learned how much money I had. You just loved an old man who needed love. That's why I'm giving you everything. Colin will tell people you're a gold digger. Let him talk. The people who matter will see the truth. Now, here's what I need you to do. First, take care of yourself. Get a good therapist. Process everything that's happened. Grieve the marriage you thought you had. Mourn me if you want to, though I hope you'll remember me with happiness, not sadness. Second, learn the business. I've left you materials in a safe deposit box. Business plans, client lists, company history. Study it all. Talk to the good employees. I've left you a list of who to trust. Fire the people who helped Colin steal. Clean house. Third, don't try to save Colin. I know you have a kind heart. You might be tempted to drop the charges to give him another chance. Don't. Colin needs to face consequences. It's the only way he might ever learn. And honestly, he probably won't learn anyway. Some people are just broken. Fourth, build something beautiful. Take my company and make it even better. Treat employees well. Serve clients honestly. Build something you can be proud of. Fifth, and this is important, live your life. You have decades ahead of you. Don't spend them alone. Find someone who sees your worth. Have adventures. Be happy. That's the best way to honor my memory. You're going to do great things, Lila. I know it. I've seen your strength even when you didn't see it yourself. Don't let Colin or anyone else make you doubt yourself. You earned this. Not through manipulation or seduction, but through being a genuinely good person in a world that doesn't have enough of those. I'm proud of you. I'm grateful I got to know you, and I'm excited to see what you do with the opportunities ahead, even if I won't be there to see it. Thank you for making an old man's last years meaningful. With love and respect, Victor. Lila read the letter several times, crying through each reading. Victor's voice was so clear in the words. She could hear his cadence, his warmth, his humor. Finally, she folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. She wiped her eyes and took several deep breaths. Then she stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. Mitchell Caldwell was waiting in the hallway. "Are you ready to begin?" he asked. "Yes," Lila said, her voice steady now. "Tell me everything I need to know." They spent the next several hours going through documents. Mitchell explained the company structure, the board of directors, the key employees, the major clients. He showed her financial statements, property deeds, investment portfolios. It was overwhelming. But as they talked, Lila found herself remembering Victor's lessons, the business concepts he had explained, the management principles he had shared, the market analysis he had taught her. It started making sense. "The board meeting is scheduled for next week," Mitchell said. "They'll be surprised by the ownership change, but they'll have to accept it. Victor owned the majority of the stock. You're now the majority owner and chairman of the board. What about Colin's position as vice president?" "Terminated as of this morning," Mitchell said. "Security has already cleared out his office. His company credit cards are canceled. His access to all systems is revoked." "And the criminal charges?" "The district attorney has all the evidence. They'll arrest Colin within the week. The case is very strong. He'll likely plead guilty to avoid a longer sentence." Lila thought about Colin in prison. Part of her felt guilty, but she remembered Victor's words. "Don't try to save him. Colin needs to face consequences." "What about Kelsey?" "She wasn't involved in the embezzlement, so no charges there. But she's fired from the company effective immediately. HR is handling that." "The house?" "Yours." "It was in Victor's name, not Colin's. Colin has no legal claim to it. You can change the locks whenever you're ready." Lila thought about that house, the home she had lived in for their marriage, the place where Colin had humiliated her just the night before. "I want to sell it," she said suddenly. "I don't want to live there anymore." "Understandable," Mitchell said. "I can recommend a real estate agent." They continued working through details until late afternoon. Mitchell's secretary brought them lunch, which Lila barely tasted. Her mind was spinning with information, plans, fears, and possibilities. Finally, Mitchell closed the last folder. "That's enough for today," he said. "You're probably exhausted." "I am," Lila admitted. "Where are you staying tonight? Do you need hotel recommendations?" Lila hadn't thought about that. The house was technically hers now, but Colin might be there. The thought of facing him again made her stomach turn. "A hotel would be good," she said. Mitchell pulled out his phone and made a call. Within minutes, he had arranged a suite at a luxury hotel downtown. "It's on the company account," he said. "Or your account now, I suppose." He drove her to the hotel himself. As they pulled up, he turned to her with a serious expression. "Mrs. Bennett, Lila, I want you to know something. I've been practicing law for many years. I've handled hundreds of wills and estates. Victor Bennett was one of the finest men I ever met. And what he did for you, that wasn't charity. That wasn't manipulation. That was a smart man recognizing quality in another person. He believed in you. And I think he was right, too." Lila's eyes filled with tears again. "Thank you." "The road ahead won't be easy," Mitchell continued. "Colin will make noise. People will gossip. You'll face challenges at the company. But you're tougher than you think. Victor saw that. Now you need to see it too." Lila nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Mitchell handed her a business card. "My personal cell number is on the back. Call me day or night if you need anything. Anything at all. I'm not just your lawyer. I'm your ally." She took the card gratefully and got out of the car. The hotel doorman welcomed her, and she walked into the gleaming lobby feeling like she had stepped into another universe. The suite was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a king bed with soft white linens, a bathroom with a huge tub, everything pristine and peaceful. Lila stood at the window, looking out at the skyline as the sun set. That morning she had woken up in a cold basement facing homelessness and poverty. Tonight she was standing in a luxury hotel with a vast fortune. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won. You haven't. I'll destroy you. Colin." Lila blocked the number without responding. Let him make threats. Let him rage and scheme. Victor had made sure she was protected. She ordered room service, the first real meal she had had in days. While she ate, she pulled out the folder Mitchell had given her. Information about the company, about her new responsibilities. Tomorrow she would need to go to the house and pack her things. She would need to change locks and arrange for the sale. She would need to prepare for the board meeting. But tonight, she just needed to process everything. She took a long bath, letting the hot water ease the tension from her body. Then, she put on the hotel robe and sat on the bed, Victor's letter in her hands again. "Build something beautiful," he had written. Lila thought about the company, about the employees depending on it, about the clients trusting it, about the legacy Victor had built over decades of hard work. Could she really do this? Could she step into Victor's shoes and run a multi-million-dollar business? Doubt crept in. She wasn't formally trained. She had never managed anyone. She knew theory, but not practice. But then she remembered Victor's lessons about keeping your word, about doing quality work, about treating people fairly. Simple rules that most people couldn't follow. She could follow those rules. She could learn the rest. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Another text from Colin, probably. But when she looked, it wasn't from Colin. It was from Mitchell. "Just heard from the DA. Colin was arrested an hour ago at his mother's house. He's being held on a large bail amount. Thought you'd want to know." Lila stared at the message. Colin arrested. Colin in jail. She should feel victorious. Instead, she just felt tired and sad. Sad for the man Colin could have been. Sad for the marriage that had died. Sad for all the wasted years. But underneath the sadness was something else. Something Victor had given her. Hope. Hope for the future. Hope for the company. Hope for herself. She set down her phone and pulled out her laptop. She opened a blank document and started writing notes. Ideas for the company. Changes to make. People to talk to. Questions to ask. The doubts were still there. The fear was still real. But so was the determination. Victor had believed in her. Now she needed to believe in herself. Outside the window, the city lights sparkled in the darkness. Lila worked late into the night planning her future. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Lila spent the time before the board meeting in the hotel preparing. Mitchell had sent over boxes of files, and she read everything she could about the company's history, finances, and operations. On the day before the meeting, Mitchell called. Colin made bail, he said. His mother put up her house as collateral. "Is he dangerous?" Lila asked. "He's angry, but he's not stupid enough to do anything violent. That would just add charges. Still, I've arranged for security at your hotel and at the company. Just a precaution. Thank you. Also, you should know Kelsey gave a statement to the police. She's trying to distance herself from Colin. Claims she didn't know about the embezzlement. Did she know? Hard to say. But she definitely knew about the affair, obviously. And she definitely helped Colin hide it. Whether she knew about the financial crimes is unclear." Lila thought about Kelsey's visit to the basement that night. The smug confidence, the cruelty. She knew he was planning to kick me out with nothing. She celebrated it. That's not a crime, unfortunately. Just makes her a terrible person. Sometime later, Lila finally went back to the house. She brought 2 security guards Mitchell had hired, just in case Colin showed up. The house was empty and trashed. Colin had clearly been there in a rage. Picture frames were smashed. Furniture was overturned. Her clothes were scattered everywhere, some of them torn or stained. One of the security guards shook his head. "This is destruction of property. You could press charges." "No," Lila said quietly. "Let it go. He's facing enough charges already." She packed her remaining belongings carefully. Not much had survived Colin's rampage. Most of her clothes, her books, her personal items, all ruined. But she found the things that mattered. A photo album with pictures of her parents who had died years ago, a jewelry box her mother had given her, some letters from old friends. She also went to Victor's room. It looked untouched. Colin hadn't dared destroy his father's belongings, apparently. Lila stood in the doorway, remembering all the hours she had spent there, reading to Victor, talking with him, learning from him. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty room, "for everything." She found a box of Victor's favorite books and packed them carefully. She would keep those forever. By evening, everything salvageable was packed in the security guard's van. Lila took one last look at the house, then locked the door and left. She never went back. On the morning of the board meeting, Lila dressed carefully. She wore a navy suit she had bought recently, professional and authoritative. She kept her makeup minimal and her hair pulled back. Patterson met her at the company building. "Ready?" he asked. "No," Lila admitted, "but let's do it anyway." The building was impressive, several stories of glass and steel in an industrial park. Bennett Manufacturing was on several floors. The executive offices and boardroom were on the top floor. As Lila walked through the lobby, employees stared. Some whispered. Everyone knew something major had happened, but few knew exactly what. The board meeting was scheduled for that morning. Mitchell led her to the boardroom, a large space with a long table and leather chairs. Several people were already seated, the board members. They stood when Lila entered, looking confused. "Good morning," Mitchell said. "Thank you all for coming on short notice. I'm Mitchell Caldwell, Victor Bennett's personal attorney. This is Lila Bennett." "Colin's wife," one of the board members said. An older man named Frank Morrison, according to the briefing materials Lila had studied. "Colin's soon-to-be ex-wife," Lila corrected, "and Victor Bennett's sole heir." Silence. Then chaos. "What? That's impossible. Where's Colin?" Mitchell held up his hand. "Please sit down. I'll explain everything." For the next half hour, Mitchell laid out the situation: Victor's will, Colin's embezzlement, the criminal charges, Lila's new position as majority shareholder and chairman of the board. The board members listened in stunned silence. When Mitchell finished, Frank Morrison spoke first. "This is unprecedented. Mrs. Bennett, with all respect, do you have any experience running a manufacturing company?" "No," Lila said honestly, "but Victor thought I could learn. He spent the time he lived with us teaching me about this business." "That's not the same as actually running it," another board member said, a woman named Patricia Hughes. "I know," Lila acknowledged, "which is why I need your help, all of you. Victor trusted you to serve on this board. Now I'm asking you to trust me to lead it." "What's your vision for the company?" Frank asked. Lila had prepared for this question. She had spent the time before thinking about it. "First, we need to clean up the mess Colin made," she said. "I've reviewed the financial statements. Revenue is down significantly over the last period. Client complaints are up. Employee morale is in the basement. Colin ran this company into the ground through incompetence and theft." The board members shifted uncomfortably. They had all known things were bad, but hearing it stated so bluntly was jarring. "Second," Lila continued, "we need to return to the principles Victor built this company on. Quality products, on-time delivery, honest business practices. We've lost clients because Colin cut corners and missed deadlines. We're going to win them back." "How?" Patricia asked skeptically. "By keeping our promises," Lila said simply. "By doing exactly what we say we'll do. By treating our clients and our employees with respect. These aren't revolutionary concepts. They're basic business ethics, but they work." She pulled out a document and slid copies across the table. "I've put together a short-term plan. In the coming period, we're going to audit all current projects to ensure quality, reach out to former clients to rebuild relationships, implement new quality control processes, increase employee training and support, and establish transparent reporting systems." Frank picked up the document and read through it. His eyebrows rose. "This is actually quite thorough." "Thank you. I had a good teacher." "What about leadership?" was Patricia asked. "Colin was vice president. Who's going to fill that role?" "No one for now. Let's us," Lila said. "The vice president position was created for Colin because he was Victor's son. It was a mistake. We don't need a vice president. We need a strong management team working together. I'm proposing we promote from within people who actually know their departments and care about this company." She pulled out another document. "I've identified several key managers who fit that description. I'd like the board's approval to offer them expanded roles and compensation packages." The board reviewed the names. Lila nodded around the table. "These are good people," Frank admitted. "Colin should have promoted them long ago." "Colin was too busy stealing from the company to notice good employees," Lila said bluntly. More uncomfortable silence. Then Patricia spoke. "Mrs. Bennett, Lila, I'll be honest. When you walked in here this morning, I thought this was going to be a disaster. I thought we'd have an inexperienced woman trying to play CEO while the company collapsed. Lila braced herself. But you've clearly done your homework, Patricia continued. You understand the problems, you have realistic solutions, and you're not pretending to know everything. You're asking for help. That's actually good leadership. Thank you, Lila said, relieved. I'm still concerned about your lack of experience, Frank said, but I'm willing to give you a chance, with conditions. What conditions? First, you hire an experienced chief operating officer, someone who's run a manufacturing company before, someone who can handle day-to-day operations while you learn. Lila nodded. That was fair. Second, you meet with us regularly for the first several months. We need to stay informed and provide guidance. Agreed. Third, you're honest with us. If something's not working, if you're in over your head, you tell us. No pride, no stubbornness, just honesty. I can do that, Lila said. Frank looked at the other board members. All in favor of accepting Lila Bennett as chairman and majority shareholder? Several hands went up. Then, after a pause, the rest. Welcome aboard, Frank said. Now let's get to work. The rest of the meeting focused on immediate priorities. Colin had left several projects in crisis. Clients were threatening to cancel contracts. Employees were confused and worried about their jobs. Lila took notes and asked questions. The board members gradually warmed up, offering advice and support. By midday, they had a plan for the coming days. After the meeting, Patricia pulled Lila aside. Can I give you some advice? Please. Don't try to be Victor. He was irreplaceable. Be yourself instead. Bring your own strength, your own style. The company needs fresh leadership, not a Victor imitation. Thank you. I'll remember that. Patricia hesitated, then added, I knew about Colin's affair. I should have said something to Victor. I'm sorry. It's okay, Lila said. Victor knew. He knew everything. Over the following days, Lila threw herself into work. She met with key managers, toured the facility, talked to employees, called clients. She worked long hours learning everything she could. News about Colin's arrest spread quickly. Local news covered it. Company vice president arrested for embezzlement. Employees gossiped. Clients called with concerns. Lila handled it all honestly. Yes, Colin had stolen from the company. Yes, he had been arrested. No, it wouldn't affect their projects or services. The company was moving forward under new leadership. Sometime later, Colin's lawyer called Mitchell. Colin wanted to negotiate. He's willing to plead guilty to reduce charges in exchange for a lighter sentence, Mitchell told Lila. He's also willing to sign the divorce papers without contest. He just wants this to be over. What's he asking for? Nothing. He knows he has no leverage. He's just trying to minimize prison time. Lila thought about it. Part of her wanted Colin to face maximum penalties, but another part just wanted to move on. Tell him I agree to the divorce terms, no alimony from either side, clean split, she said. But I won't interfere with the criminal case. The DA can decide what charges fit the crime. Fair enough. Sometime later, Lila was in her new office, Victor's old office, which she had moved into that week, when her secretary buzzed. Mrs. Bennett, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Who is it? Kelsey Price. Lila's stomach tightened. The last person she wanted to see, but curiosity won out. Send her in. Kelsey entered a minute later. She looked different than the confident woman from that night in the basement. Her makeup was smudged. Her clothes were wrinkled. She looked defeated. Thank you for seeing me, Kelsey said quietly. Lila gestured to a chair but didn't speak. Kelsey sat down, not meeting Lila's eyes. I came to apologize. Okay. I was terrible to you. I helped Colin hurt you. I celebrated your pain, and I'm sorry. Lila studied her. The apology seemed genuine, but she didn't trust this woman. Why are you really here, Kelsey? Kelsey's face crumpled. Because my life is falling apart. Colin used me. I thought he loved me, but he just wanted someone young and stupid. Now, he's in legal trouble and he's blaming everything on me. He told the cops I knew about the embezzlement, which I didn't. I'm probably going to be charged as an accomplice. Are you asking me to help you? No, Kelsey said quickly. I know you have no reason to help me. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry, and that you were right that night in the basement. I can't live with myself. What I did was wrong. What we did to you was unforgivable. Lila felt no satisfaction in Kelsey's pain, just sadness for everyone involved. The truth will come out, Lila said. If you really didn't know about the embezzlement, the investigation will show that. But if you did know, you'll face consequences. Either way, that's not my decision to make. Kelsey nodded, tears rolling down her face. I know. I just wanted to apologize, for whatever it's worth. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. Victor was right about you. You're a good person, better than Colin ever deserved. Then she was gone. Lila sat in the quiet office thinking about justice. Colin was facing prison. Kelsey was facing investigation. Their affair had destroyed multiple lives, and she was left picking up the pieces, building something new from the wreckage. But she was building. That was the important thing. She wasn't just surviving, she was creating, leading, growing. Victor had given her that gift, the gift of possibility. She looked at his photo on her desk, a picture of him smiling, healthy and strong from years before the stroke. I'm trying, she whispered to the photo. I'm really trying. And somehow she felt his approval. Sometime after the will reading, Bennett Manufacturing was showing signs of recovery. Lila arrived at the office early each morning and often stayed late. She had hired a chief operating officer like the board suggested, a man named Robert Chung, who had many years of manufacturing experience and infinite patience for her questions. You're a natural at this, Robert told her one morning as they reviewed production schedules. You see problems others miss. That's because I'm asking questions, Lila said. I don't have enough experience to assume anything, so I question everything. That's not dumb. That's smart. Experience can make people blind to obvious issues. The turnaround was slow, but real. Lila had personally called every major client Colin had lost. She had apologized for the company's failures. She had offered audits to prove quality was back on track. She had negotiated new contracts with better terms. Some clients hung up on her, but most listened, and several came back. You're not what I expected, one client told her during a facility tour. Colin always talked about his wife like you were some housewife who didn't understand business. Colin was wrong about a lot of things, Lila had replied. The employees were responding well too. Lila made a point of walking the factory floor daily, talking to workers, listening to concerns. She had implemented several suggestions from line workers that improved efficiency. She had increased wages for the lowest paid employees. She brought back the annual company picnic that Colin had canceled. People are smiling again, says the floor manager told her. That hasn't happened in years. But challenges remained. The company's reputation had been damaged by Colin's mismanagement. Some suppliers were demanding cash up front instead of extending credit. One major contract was still in jeopardy, with the client threatening to leave if quality didn't improve immediately. Lila spent a whole period personally overseeing that project. She met with the engineering team daily. She reviewed every specification. She watched production runs herself. And when problems arose, she worked with the team to solve them rather than blaming anyone. The contract was saved. The client was impressed. And word spread in the industry that Bennett Manufacturing was serious about quality again. Meanwhile, Colin's legal situation worsened. His lawyer had negotiated a plea deal for prison time for embezzlement with possibility of parole after some period. Colin had taken the deal to avoid a trial that might result in a longer sentence. Mitchell called Lila with the news. He'll be sentenced soon. The divorce will be finalized at the same time. Good, Lila said. She didn't feel happy about it, just relieved that the chapter was finally closing. Colin's mother called me, Mitchell added. She wants to meet with you. Lila was surprised. She had met Colin's mother, Carol, a few times over the years. Carol had always been cold to her, clearly preferring to pretend her son's marriage didn't exist. What does she want? She didn't say, but she was polite, and she said it was important. Against her better judgment, Lila agreed to meet. They arranged to have coffee at a quiet cafe downtown. Carol Bennett was waiting when Lila arrived. She was in her 60s, well-dressed but tired-looking. She stood when Lila approached. "Thank you for coming," Carol said. They sat down with their coffee, awkward silence between them. Finally, Carol spoke. "I owe you an apology. Several apologies, actually." Lila waited. "I knew Colin was having an affair," Carol said quietly. "I knew he was treating you badly, and I said nothing. I told myself it wasn't my business, that marriages work themselves out. But the truth is, I didn't care enough to intervene. You weren't important to me. Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I was wrong about everything." Carol looked down at her coffee. "Victor tried to talk to me about Colin. Tried to tell me our son had problems, but I didn't want to hear it. I thought Victor was just being difficult, jealous because Colin was young and successful." "Victor wasn't jealous," Lila said firmly. "He was heartbroken. His son turned into someone he didn't recognize." Carol nodded, tears in her eyes. "I know that now, and I'm sorry I didn't see it then. I'm sorry I didn't support Victor. I'm sorry I didn't support you." "What do you want from me, Carol?" "Nothing. I don't deserve anything from you. I just wanted you to know that you were right. You were always right, and Colin was wrong. And I failed as a mother because I raised a man who could treat someone the way Colin treated you." Lila felt a wave of unexpected compassion. Carol wasn't making excuses. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was just stating facts. "You didn't fail completely," Lila said. "Colin made his own choices. You can't control that." "Maybe, but I could have taught him better values. I could have held him accountable. I didn't, and now he's going to prison." They sat in silence for a moment. "How is he doing?" Lila asked, surprising herself. "Angry, bitter, blaming everyone but himself." Carol shook her head. "He calls me from jail and rants about how you stole his inheritance, how his father was senile, how the justice system is corrupt. He's learned nothing." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You're not responsible for Colin's failures. Neither am I, really, though I contributed. Colin is responsible for Colin." Carol pulled out an envelope. "I found this in Victor's things when I was cleaning out his storage unit. It's addressed to you. He must have written it some time ago and forgotten about it." Lila took the envelope carefully. Her name was on it in Victor's handwriting, but the paper was yellowed and old. "Thank you for bringing this." Carol stood to leave. "I know you're running the company now. I hear you're doing well. Victor would be proud." "Thank you. And Carol, if you ever need anything, and I know you won't, but if you do, you can call me. I may not have been a good mother-in-law, but I'd like to try being a decent human being moving forward." She left before Lila could respond. Lila sat alone with the mysterious envelope. She opened it carefully and found a single page dated sometime earlier, just after she married Colin. "Dear Lila, if you're reading this, something has gone very wrong with Colin. I hope you never have to read it, but just in case, I wanted you to know something. I see how Colin treats you sometimes. The small cuts, the dismissive comments, the way he doesn't listen when you talk. I see it, and it worries me. You're a smart woman, a kind woman. You deserve better than my son is giving you. If things get worse, if Colin becomes cruel or abusive, please leave him. Don't stay out of obligation to me. Don't stay because you think it's the right thing to do. Just leave. You are worth more than whatever pain Colin might cause you. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Colin becomes the man I raised him to be. But if he doesn't, please remember, you have value beyond your marriage. You have worth beyond your relationship to my family. Be strong, be brave, be yourself, with admiration and hope, Victor." Lila read the letter twice, her vision blurred by tears. Some time ago, Victor had already seen the problems, already worried about her, already valued her. She carefully folded the letter and put it in her purse. Another treasure from Victor. Another gift. That evening, Lila worked late on a proposal for a new client. It was late when Robert knocked on her door. "Go home," he said. "You're going to burn yourself out. Just finishing this proposal. It can wait until tomorrow. You've been here a long time." Lila looked up at him. Robert had become not just a colleague, but a friend. He reminded her a bit of Victor, calm, wise, unflappable. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. Do you think I'm doing okay? Really?" Robert came in and sat down. You want the truth? Always. You're doing better than okay. You're exceeding everyone's expectations, including mine. When you first took over, I thought we'd be lucky to keep the company afloat, but you've turned it around. Revenue is up. Employee satisfaction is up. Quality metrics are improving. You've won back several major clients. But you're working yourself to death. You're here before anyone arrives, and you're here after everyone leaves. You skip lunch. You don't take breaks. This isn't sustainable. Lila sighed. I know. I just feel like I have so much to prove. To who? Everyone. The board, the employees, the clients, everyone who thinks I didn't deserve this inheritance. Robert shook his head. Lila, listen to me. You've already proved yourself. Everyone who matters already sees that you've earned your position. The only person who still doubts you is you. Maybe. Not maybe, definitely. You're an excellent leader. You're smart, fair, hardworking, and honest. Those are Victor's values, yes, but you embody them naturally. They're not borrowed. They're yours. Lila felt tears threatening again. She seemed to cry all the time these days. Thank you, Robert. I needed to hear that. Then hear this, too. Go home, get some rest. Come back tomorrow fresh. The company will still be here. She smiled. Okay, you're right. As she packed up her things, her phone buzzed. A text from Frank Morrison, the board chairman. Board meeting tomorrow morning. Good news to share. Curious, Lila texted back. Can you give me a hint? You'll see. Just bring your smile. The next morning, Lila arrived at the boardroom early, giving herself time to prepare for whatever announcement was coming. The board members were all there early too, which was unusual, and they were all smiling. Good morning, Lila, Frank said warmly. Thanks for coming. Of course, what's the good news? Frank pulled out a folder. We just received this proposal yesterday. A major aerospace company wants to partner with us. They need high-precision bearings for a new aircraft project. It's a multi-year contract worth a large sum. Lila's eyes widened. They specifically requested Bennett Manufacturing because they heard we'd return to our quality standards. They mentioned you by name, Lila. They said they were impressed by your personal oversight of projects and your commitment to excellence. This is incredible, Lila breathed. It is, Patricia agreed. This is the kind of contract that transforms a company. If we deliver on this, it'll lead to even bigger opportunities. There's more, Frank added. The board has been discussing your performance over the past period. We're unanimous in our assessment. You've exceeded every expectation. You've saved this company from collapse and positioned it for growth. Thank you, but I had a lot of help. Let me finish, Frank interrupted gently. We want to make your position official and permanent. We're formally offering you the title of CEO with a compensation package commensurate with that role. Lila was speechless. You've earned it, Patricia said. You're not chairman of the board as a courtesy anymore. You're the real leader of this company. It's time your title reflected that. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Robert said with a grin. He had been invited to this meeting, apparently. Yes, Lila said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, absolutely yes. The board members applauded. Frank came around the table and shook her hand firmly. Welcome to the leadership team, CEO Bennett. Victor would be proud. As the meeting ended and everyone congratulated her, Lila felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete, genuine happiness. She had done it. She had proven herself, not through manipulation or luck, but through hard work and integrity. Victor had been right about her, and now everyone else saw it too. That afternoon, she called Mitchell Caldwell and told him the news. That's wonderful, Lila, he said warmly. You've come a long way from that basement, haven't you? I have, thanks to Victor. Well, thanks to you, Mitchell corrected. Victor gave you opportunity. You did everything else. After hanging up, Lila sat in her office and pulled out Victor's photo again. I did it, she whispered. I actually did it. And she swore she could hear his voice, warm and proud. I knew you would. Sometime after taking over Bennett Manufacturing, Lila stood in a renovated conference room presenting to potential investors. The aerospace contract had been just the beginning. Now she was pitching an expansion plan that would grow the company significantly. Bennett Manufacturing has a long history of precision and reliability, she told the room of suited investors. Under previous leadership, we lost sight of those values, but we've course-corrected. In the recent period, our revenue is up significantly, client retention is high, employee satisfaction scores have doubled. She clicked to the next slide. Now we're ready to expand. We're proposing a new facility in the industrial district dedicated to aerospace components. This will increase our production capacity for high-precision parts and position us as a leader in the aerospace supply chain. Questions came rapid fire. Lila answered each one confidently, backed by data and realistic projections. Robert had helped her prepare, but the vision was all hers. By the end of the presentation, several investors had committed funding. Others wanted follow-up meetings. "You killed it," Robert said as they walked back to their car. "We killed it," Lila corrected. "I couldn't do this without your operational expertise." "Maybe, but the vision is yours. The leadership is yours. I'm just the guy making sure the trains run on time." As they drove back to the office, Lila's phone rang. Mitchell Caldwell. "Lila, I have news. Colin was sentenced today to prison time, eligible for parole after some period." "That's less than expected," Lila said, surprised. His lawyer argued for leniency based on first-time offender status and Colin's cooperation with investigators. The judge was lenient. "How do you feel about it?" Lila thought about it. Some time ago, she would have wanted Colin to suffer more. Now, she mostly just felt tired of thinking about him. "I feel fine," she said honestly. "It's over. That's what matters. The divorce is finalized too. You're officially no longer married to Colin Bennett." "Thank God." "There's one more thing. Colin's mother wants to establish a victims' restitution fund. She's offering to pay back everyone Colin stole from. She asked if you'd support her in setting that up." "Of course. Carol's trying to make amends. I respect that." After hanging up, Lila felt a weight lift. The legal matters were finally finished. Colin was out of her life permanently. She could move forward without looking back. Over the next months, Lila threw herself into building the company. The new facility broke ground. She hired many new employees, focusing on people from disadvantaged backgrounds who needed opportunities. "Everyone deserves a chance," she told her HR director. "We're not just building a company, we're building lives." She also established the Victor Bennett Scholarship Fund, providing college scholarships to children of company employees. She created a profit-sharing program so employees benefited when the company did well. She implemented flexible schedules for working parents. "You're too generous," the company's CFO warned. "These programs cost money." "They also build loyalty," Lila countered. "Happy employees work harder, they stay longer, they care about quality. It's not generosity, it's smart business." The results proved her right. Productivity increased, turnover decreased. Bennett Manufacturing was becoming known as a great place to work. In some time, Lila was invited to speak at a business conference about corporate turnarounds. She almost declined. Public speaking terrified her, but Robert convinced her to accept. "People need to hear your story," he said. "Not just the business turnaround, but your personal one." The conference was held in a large hotel ballroom. Lila stood backstage, her hands shaking as someone introduced her. "Our next speaker inherited a failing company in the midst of scandal. In a short period, she's turned it into one of the fastest-growing manufacturers in the state. Please welcome Lila Bennett, CEO of Bennett Manufacturing." Lila walked onto the stage to polite applause. She looked at the audience, hundreds of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and students, and felt panic rising. Then she saw Robert in the front row giving her a thumbs up. She took a breath and began. "Some time ago, I was sleeping in a basement," she said simply. The room went silent. She told her story. Not all of it. Some details were too private, but enough. The basement, the cruel ultimatum, the will reading, the inheritance she never expected. "I didn't plan to become a CEO," she said. "I didn't even plan to work in manufacturing. But someone believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Someone saw potential I couldn't see. And someone gave me an opportunity I hadn't earned yet." She talked about Victor, about his values, about his lessons. Victor taught me that business isn't just about profit. It's about people. It's about keeping promises. It's about building something that matters beyond money. Those sound like simple principles, but they're revolutionary when you actually live them. She shared the company's turnaround numbers, the client wins, the employee programs, the expansion plans. But the most important thing I've learned isn't about business, she said. It's about resilience. Some time ago, I thought my life was over. I had no money, no prospects, no future. I was about to be thrown out of my home with nothing, and I felt like a complete failure. Her voice grew stronger, but I wasn't a failure. I was just in a dark moment, and if someone had told me then what my life would look like now, I wouldn't have believed them. I couldn't have imagined this. She looked at the audience. If you're in a dark moment right now, if you feel like you've lost everything, if you think you'll never recover, I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. You can rebuild. You can reinvent yourself. You can create something beautiful from something broken. The applause started before she finished. It grew louder as she concluded her speech. People stood. The ovation lasted several minutes. Afterward, dozens of people approached her with questions and thanks. Young women especially, telling her their own stories of setbacks and struggles. "You give me hope," one woman said, tears in her eyes. "I'm going through a divorce right now. My husband is trying to take everything. I felt so powerless. But hearing your story makes me think I can survive this." "You will," Lila assured her. "You absolutely will." That night, Lila returned to her apartment. She had bought a nice place downtown, nothing ostentatious but comfortable, and hers, feeling more confident than she had ever felt before. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. In the following period, the aerospace contract was completed ahead of schedule. The client was so impressed, they immediately signed another contract for a large sum over some years. The board voted to give Lila a significant bonus. She accepted half of it and distributed the other half to the employees who had worked on the project. "You're supposed to keep that money," the CFO said, exasperated. "I'm building loyalty," Lila replied. "Besides, they earned it." In the next period, Lila attended a charity gala for children's hospitals. She bought a table and invited several employees and their families. She was standing by the bar talking with Robert and his wife when someone approached her. "Lila Bennett?" She turned and saw a man about her age, tall with kind eyes and an easy smile. He looked vaguely familiar. "Yes, I'm James Rodriguez. I heard you speak at the business conference some time ago. Your story was incredible." "Thank you. That's very kind," he said. "I wanted to introduce myself because I think our companies might work well together. I own Rodriguez Tech Solutions. We design software for manufacturing processes. I'd love to talk with you about how we might collaborate." They talked for some time. James was smart, passionate about his work, and genuinely interested in what Bennett Manufacturing was doing. He asked thoughtful questions. He listened to her answers. "I definitely like to meet," Lila said, exchanging business cards with him. "Call my office and we'll set something up." "I will," James promised. Then he paused. "Can I say something that might be inappropriate?" Lila braced herself. Here it comes. The assumption that she didn't earn her position. "Your transformation is inspiring," James said. "Not just the business turnaround, but your personal journey. My mother went through something similar. An ugly divorce, lost everything, had to rebuild. She eventually started her own business too. So hearing your story reminded me of her. It reminded me that people are stronger than they think." Lila relaxed. "Thank you. That means a lot." Over the next weeks, Lila and James did meet to discuss business collaboration. Their companies ended up partnering on a project to streamline Bennett Manufacturing's inventory systems. The partnership was successful. But something else developed too. A friendship. Then more than friendship. James asked her to dinner sometime later. Not a business dinner. A real date. Lila almost said no. She wasn't ready. Her divorce was barely final. She had so much going on with the company. But Robert's words echoed in her head. "The only person who still doubts you is you." "I'd like that," she told James. The date was wonderful. James was funny, respectful, and genuinely interested in getting to know her. He asked about her life, but didn't pry into painful subjects. He shared his own story, a divorce sometime earlier, no children, focused on building his company since then. "I'm not looking for anything serious right now," Lila told him honestly at the end of the evening. "Neither am I, James said, "but I'd like to see you again, if you're interested." She was interested. They started dating casually, dinner once a week, movies occasionally, nothing intense, just two people enjoying each other's company. "You seem happy," Robert observed one day at work. "I am," Lila realized. "I'm actually happy." By the end of the year, Bennett Manufacturing had exceeded all projections. Revenue was up significantly. The company had hired many new employees. The expansion facility was on schedule. They had won contracts with several new major clients. At the company Christmas party, Lila stood at the podium to give her annual address. She looked at all the employees gathered in the warehouse. Workers in their best clothes, families with children, people smiling and laughing. "Some time ago, this company was in trouble," she began. "Under previous leadership, we'd lost sight of our values. Quality had declined. Clients were unhappy. Many of you were wondering if you'd have jobs soon." The room was quiet, remembering. "Today, I'm happy to report that Bennett Manufacturing is stronger than it's been in a long time. We've won major contracts. We're expanding. And most importantly, we're doing it the right way, with integrity, quality, and respect for every person here." Applause broke out. "But this success isn't mine," Lila continued. "It's ours. Every person in this room contributed to this turnaround. Every person here made Bennett Manufacturing a company worth being proud of. So, thank you. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for working hard. Thank you for believing in what we're building together." The applause grew louder. Lila saw tears on several faces, pride on many more. "We're going to have an incredible year ahead," she concluded, "and we're going to do it together. Merry Christmas, everyone, and thank you for making this the best year of my life." As the party continued, Lila stepped outside for air. The December night was cold but clear. She could see stars overhead. She thought about where she had been some time ago, the basement, the ultimatum, the fear. And she thought about where she was now, CEO of a thriving company, respected in her industry, happy in her personal life, free. "I did it, Victor," she whispered to the stars. "I built something beautiful, just like you told me to." And somehow, in the quiet of the winter night, she felt his approval warming her like sunlight. 1 year after the will reading, Lila stood in her office in the morning, looking at blueprints for the new aerospace facility. Construction was ahead of schedule. They would be operational soon. Her phone buzzed, a text from James. "Good morning. Coffee later?" She smiled and texted back, "Can't today. Board meeting and client calls. Tomorrow?" It's a date. Their relationship had progressed slowly but steadily. Some time of casual dating had turned into something more serious. James was patient with her hesitation, understanding why trust was difficult for her now. "I'm not Colin," he had said once when she had pulled back emotionally. "I'm not going to hurt you, but I understand why you're scared. Take all the time you need." She was learning to trust again. It was hard, but James made it easier. The board meeting started that morning. Frank Morrison called it to order and immediately turned to Lila. "Before we begin regular business, I want to acknowledge something significant. Today marks exactly 1 year since Lila took over leadership of this company. In that year, Bennett Manufacturing has achieved the following." He pulled up a presentation. The numbers were staggering. Revenue up significantly, client retention high, many new major contracts, many new employees hired, new facility under construction, 0 safety incidents, employee satisfaction scores increased dramatically. "These numbers speak for themselves," Frank said, "but numbers don't tell the whole story. Lila hasn't just saved this company, she's transformed it. She's built a culture of integrity and excellence. She's made Bennett Manufacturing a company people want to work for and do business with." Patricia spoke up. "I was skeptical a year ago, I'll admit that. I didn't think someone without manufacturing experience could lead this company. I was wrong. Lila has proven that good leadership transcends specific industry knowledge. She has vision, integrity, and the ability to inspire people. Those qualities matter more than technical expertise. The other board members nodded in agreement. Therefore, Frank continued, the board has voted unanimously to extend Lila's contract as CEO for another several years. We've also approved a significant equity increase in a compensation package that reflects the value she's brought to this company. Thank you, Lila said, genuinely moved. Thank you all for believing in me, for guiding me, for supporting me when I made mistakes. You've made remarkably few mistakes, Robert pointed out, and when you have, you've corrected them quickly. The rest of the meeting focused on future plans, the expansion, new markets, strategic partnerships. Lila listened and contributed, still amazed sometimes that this was her life now. After the meeting, she returned to her office and found an envelope on her desk. Inside was a newspaper clipping, a small article about Colin's release from prison. Colin Bennett, former vice president of Bennett Manufacturing, was released on parole recently after serving part of his sentence for embezzlement. Bennett declined to comment to reporters. Lila felt a moment of anxiety. What if he tried to contact her? What if he caused trouble? Then she remembered something Victor had written in one of his letters. Don't let Colin take up space in your mind. He doesn't deserve that real estate. She threw the clipping in the trash. Colin was out of prison, but he was also out of her life. Whatever he did next wasn't her concern. Her phone rang. Mitchell Caldwell. Did you see the news about Colin? He asked. Just read about it. He's not allowed to contact you. That's part of his parole conditions. If he tries, call me immediately. I will. But honestly, Mitchell, I don't think he will. Colin's ego won't let him face me. He'd rather pretend I don't exist. You're probably right. Still, be cautious. After hanging up, Lila got back to work. She had a client presentation to prepare, a hiring decision to make, and a meeting with the architect about the new facility. At lunch, Robert knocked on her door. Got a minute? Of course. He sat down looking serious. I wanted to give you a heads up. I got a call from a reporter today. She's doing a story on corporate turnarounds and she wants to interview you. What did you tell her? That I'd pass along the message. But Lila, you should know she specifically asked about Colin, about the inheritance, about the criminal case. This wouldn't be a puff piece about business success. It would dig into the personal drama. Lila considered it. Some time ago, she would have refused immediately. The thought of people knowing her story, judging her situation, would have been mortifying. But she had given that speech at the business conference. She had shared her story publicly, and the response had been overwhelmingly positive. Tell her I'll do it, Lila said, but on my terms. I'll talk about the business turnaround. I'll talk about Victor's mentorship. I'll talk about rebuilding my life. But I won't trash Colin, and I won't discuss details of the marriage that are private. Are you sure? This will make you even more visible. I'm sure. My story might help someone else who's going through something similar. That's worth the discomfort. The interview happened sometime later. The reporter was fair and respectful. The resulting article, published in a major business magazine, was honest but kind. It focused on resilience, reinvention, and the power of mentorship. The headline read, From Basement to Boardroom, How Lila Bennett Rebuilt Her Life and Saved a Company. The article went viral. Lila received hundreds of emails and messages from people sharing their own stories of setbacks and comebacks. Several universities invited her to speak. A literary agent contacted her about writing a book. You're becoming famous, James teased one evening over dinner. That's not what I wanted, Lila said. I just wanted to save the company. Too late now. You're an inspiration. I'm just someone who was given an opportunity and worked hard. James reached across the table and took her hand. You're someone who survived betrayal and transformed pain into purpose. That's not just anything. That's extraordinary. Lila squeezed his hand, grateful for his support. In the following period, the new aerospace facility opened. The ceremony was attended by company employees, board members, city officials, and representatives from their major clients. Lila cut the ribbon and gave a speech about Victor's vision and values. This building represents more than expansion, she said. It represents commitment to quality, to our employees, and to the future. Victor would be proud of what we're building here. After the ceremony, as she toured the new facility with various guests, someone approached her that she hadn't expected to see. Carol Bennett, Colin's mother. "Lila," Carol said quietly, "I hope it's okay that I came. I saw the announcement in the paper." "Of course it's okay. How are you?" "I'm well. I wanted to see what you've done with Victor's company." "It's impressive." They walked together through the facility, Carol asking intelligent questions about the operations. It was clear she understood manufacturing. She had been married to Victor for some time, after all, before their divorce. "Victor would be very proud of Carol," Carol said finally. "You've exceeded even his expectations, I think." "Thank you. That means a lot." Carol hesitated, then asked, "Have you heard from Colin?" "No, and I don't expect to. He's working at a warehouse now, loading trucks. It's hard for ex-convicts to find good jobs." Lila felt a pang of sympathy, but also resolve. "I'm sorry his life is difficult, but those are consequences of his choices." "I know, you don't owe him anything. I just thought you'd want to know he's employed. He's trying to put his life back together." "I hope he succeeds," Lila said honestly. "I don't wish him harm. I just don't want him in my life." "I understand and I respect that." They parted cordially, and Lila felt closure. Even Colin's mother acknowledged that Lila had been right. That was enough. In the following period, James asked Lila to go away with him for a long weekend. They drove to a cabin in the mountains away from business and phones and obligations. On Saturday evening, sitting by a fire, James turned to her with a serious expression. "I need to tell you something," he said. Lila's heart sank. Here it comes, the revelation that he's married or has some secret or wants to break up. "I'm falling in love with you," James said. "Actually, that's not accurate. I've already fallen. I'm in love with you." Lila stared at him, speechless. "I know it's only been some time since you said him," James continued. "I know you're still healing from everything that happened. I'm not asking you to say it back. I'm not pressuring you for anything. I just needed you to know, because I don't want to hide how I feel." Lila felt tears welling up, but these were good tears, happy tears. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm scared of trusting someone again, of believing someone loves me and then finding out it's a lie." "I know," James said gently, "and I don't blame you for being scared. Colin did real damage, but Lila, I'm not Colin. I don't want your money. I have my own successful company. I don't want to control you. I admire your independence. I just want to be with you, to support you, to build a life with you if you'll let me." She looked at this man who had been patient with her walls, understanding of her fears, respectful of her boundaries. This man who had never pushed, never demanded, never made her feel less than. "I'm falling in love with you too," she said quietly. "It terrifies me, but it's true." James pulled her close, and they sat by the fire for hours talking about the future, about hopes and dreams, about building something together. "I don't want to rush anything," Lila said. "I need to take this slow." "We'll take it as slow as you need," James promised. "I'm not going anywhere." By the next season, Bennett Manufacturing had secured more major contracts. The company was now on track to hit a high level of annual revenue within some years, a goal that had seemed impossible when Lila first took over. She hired additional leadership to handle day-to-day operations, freeing herself to focus on strategy and growth. She launched an internship program for engineering students from local universities. She expanded the scholarship fund Victor had inspired her to create. "You're building a legacy," Robert told her one day. "Victor started it, but you're making it bigger and better." In the following period, Lila hosted a company picnic at a local park. Hundreds of employees and their families attended. There were games for children, food trucks, and live music. Lila walked through the crowd, greeting people, meeting their families, seeing the joy on their faces. These people had good jobs because she had saved the company. Their children had health care and security because she had fought to keep Bennett Manufacturing alive. This was what Victor had wanted, not just a successful business, but a company that improved lives, a company that mattered to the community. As the sun set and families packed up to leave, a woman approached Lila. She was one of the factory floor workers, relatively new to the company. "Mrs. Bennett, I just wanted to say thank you," the woman said. "I was unemployed for some time before I got this job. I have 3 kids, and I was about to lose my apartment. This job saved my family, and everyone says it's because of you, because you cared about hiring people who needed a chance." Lila felt her throat tighten with emotion. "You earned this job with your skills and your work ethic. I'm just glad we could offer it. Still, thank you. You changed my life." As the woman walked away, James appeared at Lila's side. He had come to the picnic at her invitation, meeting her employees and fitting in naturally. "You okay?" he asked, seeing tears in her eyes. "Yeah, just grateful for all of this. You built this, Lila. You should be proud." "I am proud, but I also know I didn't do it alone. Victor gave me the opportunity. Robert taught me operations. The board guided me. The employees did the actual work. I was just the leader, the one who set the direction." "That's not just anything," James said. "Leadership matters. Vision matters. You provided both." In the following period, 1 year after her speech at the business conference, Lila was invited back as the keynote speaker. This time, she was introduced as one of the most successful turnaround CEOs in the country. She walked onto the stage confidently now, no longer terrified of public speaking. "Some time ago, I was sleeping in a basement," she began, the familiar opening. But this time, she had an even better ending to share. She talked about the company's continued growth, about the lives changed through employment, about the scholarships and community programs, about building something that mattered beyond profit. "Success isn't about money," she concluded. "It's about purpose. It's about using whatever opportunities you're given to create something meaningful. Victor Bennett gave me an opportunity I hadn't earned, but I made sure I deserved it. And that's what I encourage all of you to do. Not wait until you deserve opportunities, but prove you deserve them once you receive them." The standing ovation lasted several minutes. Afterward, back in her hotel room, Lila called Mitchell Caldwell. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for everything, for helping Victor with the will, for guiding me through the legal stuff, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." "It's been my pleasure watching you succeed," Mitchell said warmly. "Victor would be over the moon with pride." "I hope so. I really hope so." "I know so. I knew Victor for many years. I knew what mattered to him. And Lila, you've exceeded his wildest dreams. You haven't just saved his company. You've elevated it. You've made it a force for good in the world. That's what he always wanted." After hanging up, Lila looked at Victor's photo on her nightstand. She carried it with her to the conference. "I'm happy now," she told the photo. "Really genuinely happy. Thank you for giving me that chance. Thank you for seeing something in me I couldn't see myself. Thank you for believing I could do this." And she swore Victor smiled back at her from the frame. In the following period, James asked Lila to move in with him. She said yes. They found a house together, something that was theirs rather than his or hers. In the next period, Lila promoted Robert to president of operations, making him her second in command officially. "You've earned this many times over," she told him. "I couldn't do this job without you." "Yes, you could," Robert said, "but I'm glad you don't have to." In the following December, at the company Christmas party, Lila announced that Bennett Manufacturing would be giving every employee a bonus of 2 weeks' salary as a thank you for an incredible year. The cheers were deafening. As the party wound down, Lila found a quiet corner and looked out at the celebration. Employees dancing with their families, children laughing, people happy and secure and proud of their work. Some time ago, she had had nothing. No money, no home, no future. Now she had everything that mattered. A thriving company, a loving relationship, a sense of purpose, respect from her peers, the satisfaction of building something meaningful. Colin had tried to destroy her. Instead, he had freed her. The basement had been rock bottom, but hitting rock bottom had given her a foundation to build on. And what she had built was better than anything she had had before. James appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. "Toast?" he asked. "What are we toasting?" "To justice, to Victor, to you, to the life you deserved all along." Lila clinked her glass against his. "To the life I deserved," she agreed. And as she drank, surrounded by the company she had saved and the life she had built, Lila felt complete peace. She had survived betrayal. She had faced her fears. She had proven herself. And now, finally, she was living the life Victor had always known she could have, the life she truly deserved.